And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first Moyleen Consulting and Training Group session of our Reemerge sessions. In interesting times that we have, this COVID-19 that we're going through, a lot of changes, and we're here to talk about what we can actually do as individuals to re-emerge. I'm Andy Collins. I quickly one of the co-managing directors. I'd like to introduce my colleague,
Thanks,
Darren Holland.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, Darren Holland here, other co-managing director of Moyleen Consulting and Training Group.
And welcome. So, Darren, next slide.
No worries. There we go.
So from the welcome perspective, welcome to all of you taking the time out on this Friday afternoon to come and join us. Very much appreciate that. We said we've got about a sort of a 40 to 45 minute session today, depending on how many questions we've got, where you get a chance to actually look at, I said, how do we actually build ourselves up? And today we're looking at we're talking about re-emerging, and particularly we're going to be talking about you and your personal branding today. That's the key thing. Before we start, has anyone got any questions? Thank you very much for putting your microphones to mic. That's really, microphones to mute. That's very much appreciated. Thank you. Thanks. Next slide, Darren. Thanks. So what do we stand for? Well, just a quick overview of what Moyleen stands for at the moment. Now, in terms of the clients we engage with, Darren and I, we set up Moyleen with three key pillars that we talk about. We really care about. One is actually engaging in true, real partnerships with people. I often joke with Darren this idea: if we talk about, we're not drive-by consultants. We're not going to come by, gun you down, take your money, and run. We actually do want to enter into a true partnership. That's what we've done historically. That's really important. The second component for us is actually delivering real outcomes. We actually want to see the physical changes in either leadership or the way that you actually do customer service, real outcomes, real results that you can deliver. And far more importantly, what we call the ROI. We do not want you to invest money in us coming in to help if you do not get the return on investment. That's really important to us. And particularly up front, these are the three things we're going to be talking about: true partnership, real outcomes, and the return on investment. And that's what we stand for in our business. So what are our focus areas that we focus on? Three key areas that we have significant experience in, and other consultants that we bring in accordingly, is firstly around people and leadership. What does it take to actually manage people? What does it take to be a true leader? Then we talk about operational efficiency. And this is often just walking in and just looking at the processes that we do, setting up processes and making sure we're running the business as efficiently as possible. And as we talked about earlier, delivering on the ROI. What is actually the financial ROI of the business? In terms of how you make money, we have significant accounting experience that we bring with that, and operational experience of actually, budgetary experience we can bring to the table. There are three key focus areas, and that we deliver. Again, think about that with our pillars. That's the offer that we bring to the table for you. Darren.
Over to me. So what we've done here is we've set up what we call the Reemerge Series. And the reason we're looking at that now is obviously this is a business that we've just started. Obviously, Andy and I come to the table with a lot of experience in dealing with, thousands of people and hundreds of different businesses. But what we want to do is focus on these three areas. One is around people and leadership. The second one is around your business. And the third one is around your future. And that really ties into what Andy's just been talking about. What we're going to start with today is about you. And a bit of self-reflection with you're at, and obviously how you're going to re-emerge from the current COVID-19 crisis that we're in. But certainly what we're looking at here is about planning for success in the future. Next week, we're going to focus on your leadership style and really spend some time on you and how you're going to lead yourself and your business out of the current situation that we're in. Then what we start to think about is your current business operations. How are they going to change? Everyone's saying that business is going to change. What is yours going to look like within that? And then what we're going to look at finally is around how you manage the finances of the business. How do you manage the expenditure? How do you drive that return on investment back into the business, particularly in these challenging times, and really about emerging better and stronger as we finish. So again, you can see this whole theme of re-emergence come through in terms of what we do with our business. So let's be honest, let's look at where we're at today. So we sit here in late April, and 2020 certainly has been a challenging year. And there's no doubt that the changes in the last 2 months have been immense. We only go back to the 20th of February, down in the bottom left-hand corner, which was actually the day when the share market decided to fall. We'd hit an all-time high of just over 7,000 points and dropped to under 5,000 within a few weeks. And now we're starting to just see a little bit of a recovery there. But the fact is it's only 2 months ago since we've actually had that fall. You know, if you look at our economy over recent times, it's been very stable. You know, unemployment's been 5% or less. And now we've got, you know, it says there, the Grattan report says that potentially 3.5 million people could be out of work. We've seen what's happened to Virgin. We've seen closures of businesses. We've seen the lineups at Centrelink offices and people taking or applying for government support. And these are people that have never applied for government support before. So there's massive changes, let alone the fact that, you know, our normal lives have changed. You know, you've only got to look at the picture of the MCG there, and normally that game would have 90,000 screaming Richmond and Carlton fans, and we had an empty ground. And at the moment, a lot of the sport and normal things that we do have been taken away from us. But at some point, what we're starting to see at the moment is a real re-emergence in terms of some of the data we're starting to see is looking positive from an Australian point of view. So therefore, we need to plan for that success and what we do moving forward as well. Now, one of the things that we've had over the last little bit is most of what has occurred has actually been out of our control. It's in this purple zone on the outside here. And what we want to start to think about is, it is what it is. A lot of people have done a lot of great things over a lot of times. You look at a lot of restaurants. There's some brilliant restaurants out there that have currently got their doors closed, and it's just out of their control. But what we start to think about now is, what can we control? What do we start with us, and then what can we influence and start to build that back out again? And that's where today starts, is actually looking at you and how you can control that out from there as well. So let's start to have a look at that. Let's have a look firstly how it's affected us. And what we've done here is we've actually segmented the market, and you'll start to see a couple of marketing themes come out, because that's one of the areas of background that I have. And we start to look at the segmentation of how it's affected each individual person. You might be a leader within your business. You might work in government. The changes that have occurred in the last couple of months have been immense. You know, we only look at Crown Casino made an announcement during the week to close, close your business and let off 11,000 people. We've seen retailers close. We've seen restaurants close. You know, we've seen someone like McDonald's only doing drive-through as an example. And obviously we've seen our government leaders in the press effectively every day, you know, trying to navigate their way through an unprecedented situation. The other challenge we've got is businesses in hibernation. How do we manage these? What do we do? There's certain costs that we're going to cover during this time, whether it be rent or otherwise, and there's assistance in those areas. But the fact is, it's very difficult when you can't bring customers in and the business is in hibernation. And actually, there's a business that I'm a director of and my wife Alicia runs, which is called Women on Wheels, and that business is in hibernation because it's an events business. The other thing we're starting to think about now is underemployment. And this is where a lot of people, and I'm talking to a few people today, whereby, you know, they had the busy 5-day-a-week job. Now they're 3-4 days. They're job sharing. They're doing all sorts of different structures in terms of where they're at. How does that look for you, and what impact does that have on you as well? And finally, probably the biggest tragedy of all of this has been the unemployment that it's caused. You know, we've been in a very lucky situation for many, many years now, where our employment rate in Australia has been exceptionally good. And you can see there from the Grattan Institute, the expectation is that unemployment will grow significantly, which is sad, because in that line there is a lot of good people who've done a lot of good hard work over a lot of time. But what we want to do is help, no matter which segment you fall into, you might even fall into a couple of segments, is how do you now start to plan for the future out of here? For some businesses and some people, it might be a shorter time to come into this. For some, it might be a little bit longer as well. So that's what I want you to plan for in the future. So what we start to think about is, how are we going to re-emerge from this? What does the future look like for us? And again, sometimes that might be timing in terms of the planning. Sometimes it might be success in business. Sometimes it might be actually doing something completely different and having to reinvent ourselves in the way that we go about things as well, whether that's your personal side of things or whether it's your business. Obviously, today we're going to focus on you and how you're personally going to re-emerge. So let's look at that now. So the two things we're going to look at today is this. So what we're going to look at here is we're going to plan for your re-emergence and success. It's going to take time. You know, we've been in a period of probably instant gratification, but unfortunately that's going to change. It's going to take time for us to re-emerge and get back to where we were and then grow from there as well. We also need to take care of ourselves. And we also need to think about, do we need to reinvent ourselves? Is there new things we need to do? Is there new skills that we need to add there? And hopefully we can add a little bit of that here today too. One thing that a lot of people who've dealt with me in the past and with Andy in the past is we love a quote. And this is certainly
and we love this quote.
We do love this quote a lot. And this is one that I think applies to anyone in whatever they do. And Henry Ford said, if you think you can or think you can't, you're right. And I think if you think about that for a moment, it's so true in terms of that mindset of, if you positively think that something's going to work for you and you can control it as much as you possibly can and really drive forward with it, if you think you can do it, you will achieve it. And one of the things we've been lucky with over many years of working with different people is, we instill this mindset into people of thinking that they can achieve what they want to achieve. And we've seen a lot of businesses, a lot of people achieve what they want to achieve. And that's something that we're certainly very proud of. But one of the things that helps you think you can is the fact of, are you planning for success? One of the challenges that we see with a lot of businesses and a lot of individuals is they don't have a plan. Yes, they're running successful businesses day in, day out, but they don't necessarily have that long-term plan and long-term success. So as Benjamin Franklin said, if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. And what we're hoping here is one of the things that you can take out of this particular session is to start to put that plan together and put that structure together. And we're going to give you a structure that we're going to upload onto our website as well and onto our social media pages that you can download it. It's a nice, simple way of doing things that you can start to put together your plan for the future and your plan for re-emergence. So let's have a look at that. So this is what we call our re-emergence plan. And what it's about now is, what are you going to do? When are you going to do it to achieve the success that you want to achieve? Again, to quote the old Pantene hair ad, it may not happen overnight, but it will happen. And what I want you to do is give yourself a headline. I'm going to be the best at. I'm going to be great at. I'm going to achieve this. May as well go for gold in that sense. I know it feels like a difficult time to do that, but it's certainly well worth looking at. And what you look at here is 3 key areas. What are the strategies that I'm going to put in place to achieve it on the left-hand side? So I'm going to achieve something great. Now, most people, most businesses can achieve between 3 and 5 things. Some of the things that we tend to see as well, for those that do have a plan, is that the plan is 432 pages long. People don't read it. People don't look at it. People don't follow it. When you've got something that's nice and simple, nice plan on the page, people follow it. 3 to 5 things, do them exceptionally well, and then come out of it and really achieve those things. And hang your hat on the fact that you achieved it.
There's also a little bit of science, as Darren said there, between having 3 to 5 things. When you look at how much you could actually physically achieve, my personal measure that I often say to people is actually 4. That's the measure that I've used here. It's 3 to 5 is typically how much we can go with. I like to go for 4. Yes, so this is what Darren's talking about. Keep it simple. Put those, what are those 3 to 5 things you want to do in a simple year, and it's a simple template for you to use.
Yep. And my view on this, Andy, is that over the next, as you put this together now, what you're looking at is, what do you want to achieve in the next maybe 3, 6, 9 months? From my point of view, I'd be looking at, okay, what do I want to achieve by the end of 2020? There's no doubt that the next quarter is going to be difficult, up until between now and the end of June. But as we're starting to see some green shoots and some positivity come back, we've seen some good numbers in terms of the COVID-19 numbers around the country, and we're just starting to hear about relaxation of some things. So plan for that success and what you want to do there too. So there we go. So one of the things that I want to do is get you to think about what does that success look like in time. G'day, Mr. Whitehead. How are you going? Welcome. And what we're going to do here is really look at that. So the next thing we start to do, and we're going to put this up on your up on the web page, so you can download this strategy. So download this document so you can actually look forward with it as well. So that's one of the key things that we want you to do. So now what we want to do is focus on you as an individual. So what are the things that you can do to be great? What are the things that you need to do and you need to change to be great there as well? So that's one of the things that I'd like you to focus on now as well. And what we start to do now is we start to focus on, where are we today and what do we want to change to? And I've mentioned before that I have a marketing background, and one of the things I've been able to do over the years is reposition brands from where they are to where we want them to be. Now, the thing is the definition of a brand is actually what's the emotional response when someone says that word or is exposed to the word or the brand or the shop or whatever it might be. And a great example I use is someone like Bunnings. If I use the word Bunnings and we're here on a Friday afternoon, people generally have a happy feeling towards Bunnings, and they can smell the sausages. If I say brands like, different car brands, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Toyota, doesn't matter what they are, there's an emotional response you have to each one of those. It could be a football club, the emotional response. That's the brand that we have. An example that we look at here is actually Myer. When I say the word Myer, most people, when I do this in a room, most people tend to groan because they want Myer to be great, but they know they get bad service, the product isn't right. The only time they ever buy off them is when they're cheap, because they haven't built their brand there as well. So what I would be doing is, I actually want, if I was running Myer, I'd actually sit and go, what brand image do we want? Which is one around great service, great people, and just a place that people love to go, like a Bunnings. So from a personal point of view, let's take this back to us. And what we want to look at here is, what's your current brand image? If I was to walk into your workplace, or one day walk into a pub or a restaurant and say your name, what would people say? What would people feel about you? That's your current brand image. Whether you like it or not, that's one of the challenges of brand. I know, Andy, you've got some thoughts on that too.
Yeah, we often talk about, and I talk about an invisible billboard over your head from a personal brand perspective. So whether you realize or not, you've got this big billboard that goes over your head, and in terms of how people see you, in terms of the actions, how they feel about you, is very, very much on display. And we're going to talk later, particularly around developing self-awareness. One of the keys to that is particularly around self-awareness. And one of the challenges we find is people aren't aware enough to actually realize how they're seeing, which actually impacts their personal brand. And they worry, why can't I get to where I want to go to? And that's often linked to that. And that's one of the next sessions we'll be running next week.
Yep.
But I felt so that we feel very passionately about this self-awareness in relation to your own brand.
Yep. And the end point of this is to create your brand image. So what do you want people to say about you in the future? So if I walk into your workplace or that pub or that restaurant in 12 months' time, what are people going to say about you in that time? And you can control that. So the way that we do this is we actually start to think about, who are those people that we deal with on a daily basis? Who are those people that are looking at that billboard on top of your head and making an assessment? And in this day and age, we are being judged all the time. It's sort of, it's one of those things that people look at. So what we start to do is, what do people want from us, and understanding not only ourselves, but also our customers and our stakeholders in more detail. And one of the things that we want to look at is, as we move forward, is then starting to think about, what's my strengths? And I used the example there of Myer. If I was repositioning Myer, one of their strengths is they've got a massive network. They've probably got the best real estate in retail with their positioning in their stores. They just don't use it very well. So it's about, how do they leverage their strengths? And then it's about, okay, what do we want people to think about us in the future? And it's about us saying what we want other people to believe about us. So the way that we do this is this. We actually, and this reflects what we were just saying, is, do you want to be the one on the left or the one on the right? And what we want to do, particularly if you've got a brand at the moment that needs some adjusting, you might be seen as the one on the left, but it's very easy to readjust that brand to the one on the right. And one of the examples that we give here is actually around Mark Zuckerberg, who's the founder of Facebook. If you ever watched the movie The Social Network, he came out of that looking quite poor in terms of who he is and what he looked like. And his brand at that point got damaged. But what was really interesting, if I go back to the previous slide, he actually went through this process of looking at his current brand image. He knew it was damaged. But what he looked at, he goes, what do people want from me? They want someone who's trusted and more socially connected than what he came out looking. Now, for someone like Zuckerberg, it was quite easy for him to look at his strengths. He ran a website with, in excess at that time of over 1 billion people that were attached to it. So he had a channel that he could go and talk to people about. Then what he did is then said, how do I recreate my brand image? And he actually went down a path of bringing his wife in and his family in. He had a young family at the time, and he leveraged that and he used that to adjust his brand. And it's quite interesting. He's actually been through that process now a couple of times. And if you look at the great business people, the likes of a Steve Jobs, the likes of a Richard Branson, these people, you look at Madonna and U2, they actually understand what their current brand image is and what they want people to think about them in the future. And they're very strong at that. So that's the process there. And interesting using Zuckerberg, where he has gone from the left-hand side of the screen to the right-hand side of the screen there as well. So the questions that we ask, and what I'll get you to do is get a bit of pen and paper out and ask yourself these 4 questions. I'm not going to ask you to provide me with the answers of this, but privately go through it and go, what's your current brand image? What do people perceive and remember about you, your customers, your stakeholders? So if I was to go into your workplace or into the pub or the restaurant, what would people say? And it can be sometimes it can be quite confronting. I'm not stepping away from that, but it's one of those things, as I've done this a lot in the past with a lot of different people, it gets people to really start to self-assess where they're at. And like Andy said, it's something we're going to work on in the future as well.
And just to add what Darren says, one of the things we find, some people really struggle with this idea, particularly personally, what is their current brand image? And I'm going to link it back again to this lack of self-awareness. Self-awareness is one of the key, sort of the key fundamental pillars to get in place here. We can talk later about how we actually do that. But if you don't know where you sit and you're not getting feedback from people about what your brand image is, you really don't know where to go to. And I'm sure you'll be aware, I find it quite interesting, particularly during this current crisis, and I'm sure out there you can think of some brands are actually doing pretty badly. I know we talked about Branson. I'm going to find it quite interesting how he rebrands. If you follow the UK at all, he's actually getting slated in the press at the moment.
Yeah.
He's taking quite a hit, but he is, and already he's already doing work on that. But taking feedback and seeking feedback, really important for that.
Yep.
Thanks, Darren.
Thank you. And so obviously understand that, and then leverage your strengths. You've got some great strengths as an individual, use them. What are your strengths as a person? So let's leverage those as much as possibly want to. Then the last question is about what do you want them to perceive about you? So what's that perfect world? And it's interesting when you use the Maya example. It's funny, I use this example in a face-to-face scenario as well. What do people want from Maya? They want great service from great people. Funnily enough, I worked for Maya when I was at uni, when they used to deliver that a very long time ago. And a great product range, great price, great value, which is what they've lost. But that's the sort of thing that people are looking for. So think about it from a personal point of view. And then what you can do is you can actually go through a process, which we'll do in the next few pages, in terms of what are you going to change? What are the things that you're going to evolve over the time? And as you re-emerge, go back to the theme of what we're doing here today, is you'll actually re-emerge a different person, still key to your strengths, but still aligned with your strengths for what you want to do. So what we start to think about here is we ask 2 questions. What do you think you need to change based upon those 4 questions that we've asked? And that's effectively a gap between what you've asked answered in question 1 versus what's in question 2. But still stick to your strengths. There's a truism in advertising that advertising only works if it's true. So make sure, and it's based upon a fact. And the same for you is stick to your strengths. What are you good at? But what are those things that you need to adjust as you re-emerge through this process as well? And the other thing too is, how will you enact the change? How will you do it differently? It's a bit like what we did with that plan before, is you've got a couple of strategies you might go through, how you're going to execute it and when you're going to do it by. One of the things with any brand realignment in a corporate or business sense is it takes time. People have an ingrained perception about you. In the first Zuckerberg example, it actually took him a year to rebrand himself. And then he's had to go through I think he went through the Senate committee, and then he's had to go through the process again. So he knows that it probably takes him a year or more to go through that process. And it's about consistently, obviously that's why you got to stick to your strengths and who you are as an individual. You can't lie about that. That's who you are, but utilizing and leveraging those strengths. And that's a key thing that you want to do. So what we've done there is we've taken you through the process of thinking about your planning and thinking about yourself and as you start to re-emerge. Look, thank you for all that. What I'd just like to do is just ask you for any questions or feedback. You've got our phone numbers there. If you want to give myself a call, 0400 922 169, or email me at darren@moyleen.com. Or for Andy, please go on, Andy.
0413 849 202 or andy@moyleen.com.
Beautiful.
And if any doubt where they are, feel free to go to our website, www.moyleen.com.
Absolutely. So from our point of view, Andy, if you just want to introduce into next week.
Yeah, so next week's session, we're actually going to talk about leadership, and we mentioned self-awareness. So this is something I feel very passionately about, as does Darren. We're going to talk about self-awareness. We'll be touching on Johari windows and what you can actually do to increase your self-awareness, very much linked into the branding we talked about today. So once again, thank you so much for your time today. From Andy, wishing you a great weekend.
Yep, and from Darren as well, have a great weekend, and certainly looking forward to engaging with you again in the future. Thanks again.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.